Mystery Phantom.
Came because there was nowhere else left that felt unfinished. Welcome to Briar Hollow. Please drive slow. That might sound strange, but when you reach a certain age, you stop running toward things. You only run from the places that didn't leave cleanly, the places that linger like a word on the tip of your tongue. The places that never quite let you say goodbye. Briar Hollow was one of those places. It wasn't marked on most maps anymore. If you searched online, you'd find a grainy paragraph or two, half-remembered census data, an abandoned schoolhouse, a church that lost its congregation sometime in the late 90s. No scandals, no tragedies anyone bothered to document. Just a place that slowly stopped being necessary. The kind of place America forgets on purpose. I took Highway 16 south until my phone lost service, then west along a cracked county road that didn't even bother pretending it had been repaired this decade. Cornfields rose on both sides like walls, their dry leaves clicking together in the breeze, whispering in a way that made my shoulders tense. I noticed something then, something small. The road signs had stopped giving distances. They still named places, Briar Hollow, this way, but the numbers underneath were scratched out, peeled away, or never painted at all. Just arrows, always arrows. I told myself it was nothing. That's what I'd been telling myself my whole life. I rolled down the window to let the air in. It smelled like dust and cut hay, and something faintly sour, like old water sitting too long in a metal tank. The sky was too wide, too pale, stretching endlessly without clouds, as if it had already given up on the idea of weather. I passed a farmhouse leaning heavily to one side, its porch sagging like a tired jaw. No car, no lights, curtains drawn tight despite the afternoon sun. Someone had painted the windows white from the inside. That made me slow down. Painted windows weren't uncommon in abandoned places, but this house wasn't abandoned. The lawn was trimmed. A rusted mailbox stood upright. Fresh tire tracks cut through the dirt driveway. Someone lived there. They just didn't want to see out or be seen. By the time I reached the edge of Briar Hollow, the light had begun to change. Not dimming exactly, but flattening, like the world had lost depth. Colors dulled too closely, shadows clung too closely to their objects. A wooden sign stood at the town's boundary. Welcome to Briar Hollow. Please drive slow. No population number, no town motto. Someone had carved a second message beneath it, deep and careful, letter by letter. Take your time. I don't know why that bothered me more than anything else. The town itself was small, smaller than I remembered. A single main road with buildings huddled close, as if trying to keep warm. A closed gas station, a diner with a sun-bleached Coca-Cola sign, a feed store with boarded windows, and a bell over the door that rang when the wind pushed it just right. And people, there were people here. They moved slowly, deliberately, not quite old, but worn in a way that had nothing to do with age. Man in flannel shirts standing too still outside the diner. A woman sweeping the same patch of sidewalk over and over, never looking up. A pair of children sitting on the curb, rolling a stone back and forth between them in silence. Every single one of them watched my car as I passed. Not openly, not with curiosity, with recognition, like they were counting. I parked near what passed for the town square, just a widening in the road with a dry fountain in its center. The stone basin was cracked, filled with dirt and dead leaves. Someone had placed a single wooden chair in the middle of it, facing north. No one sat in it. I killed the engine, and the silence rushed in like it had been waiting. That's when I realized something else. There were no birds, no insects, not even the distant hum of traffic, just the sound of my own breathing, suddenly too loud. I stepped out of the car, gravel crunching under my boots, and immediately felt like I'd made a mistake that couldn't be undone. The air felt thicker here, resistant, like wading through something unseen. A man stood across the street, leaning against the diner's window. He was tall, thin, maybe late 50s. His face was deeply lined, but his eyes were clear, too clear. He smiled when he saw me looking. Not a friendly smile, a patient one. "Long way from anywhere," he said. His voice carried easily, too easily. "Yeah," I replied, "just passing through." The lie felt flimsy the moment I said it. He nodded, as if I'd told him something true anyway. "Well, most folks are." He stepped closer, boots scraping softly on the pavement. Up close, I noticed something strange about his expression. His face moved normally, but his eyes lagged behind, like they were listening to something else. "You staying long?" he asked. I hesitated. "I don't know," I said honestly. That seemed to please him. "Well," he replied, glancing around the town, "Briar Hollow's good at helping people figure that out." A bell rang suddenly from the church at the far end of the road. One slow toll, then another. The man straightened. "Best get settled. Things move different once the light goes." "What things?" I asked, but he was already walking away. I watched him disappear into the diner, the door swinging shut behind him without a sound. That was when I noticed the chair in the fountain had turned slightly, facing me now. I don't remember walking back to my car. I only remember sitting inside it, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at my own reflection in the windshield, distorted, pale, already looking like someone who had been here longer than he realized. And somewhere, deep beneath the town, something slow and vast shifted, as if Briar Hollow had finally noticed me, noticing it back.
I stayed. That decision didn't feel like a decision at the time. It felt like gravity, subtle, unavoidable, already in motion before I noticed it pulling. I told myself I'd stay one night, maybe two, rest, refuel, leave in the morning when the light returned to whatever passed for normal around here. But Briar Hollow didn't react to that thought. It never does. I found the motel at the edge of town, half hidden behind a stand of leafless trees. The sign out front buzzed weakly. One letter burned out so it read HLLOW, motel. No vacancy sign, no office lights, just the sound of electricity struggling to remember its job. I parked anyway. The building was low and long, a row of identical doors painted a dull green that had peeled into scales. The windows were covered from the inside, newspaper, cardboard, sometimes aluminum foil, each room sealed off from the outside world like an experiment. As I stood there, keys in my hand, I noticed something etched on the concrete walkway beneath my feet. Names, dozens of them, some carved deeply, some scratched so lightly they were barely visible. A few crossed out violently, lines gouged over letters again and again until nothing readable remained. I stepped back instinctively. My name wasn't there. That brought a strange sense of relief, followed immediately by something colder. Inside the office, a bell sat on the counter. I rang it once. Nothing. I rang it again, longer this time. A door behind the desk opened slowly. A woman stepped out, late 40s maybe. Her hair was pulled back tight, streaked with gray, and her face held the same worn calm I'd seen on everyone else in town. She didn't smile. "Room?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "just for the night." She paused, then reached under the counter and pulled out a key. "No charge," she said, sliding it toward me. "I can pay," I replied, already reaching for my wallet. She shook her head. "No," she said, firmly. "You'll pay another way if you stay longer." That should have sent me running. Instead, I took the key. Room 7 smelled like dust and old fabric and something faintly medicinal. The bedspread was tucked too tightly, as if no one had slept in it, or as if someone had worked very hard to erase the evidence that they had. There was a mirror above the sink. I avoided looking at it at first. When I finally did, my reflection lagged by half a second, just enough for me to question whether it really had. I told myself I was tired. Outside, the light was draining fast now, sinking into a colorless gray that felt heavier than darkness. The buzzing sign flickered, then went silent. That's when the knocking started. Not on my door. Somewhere else. Slow, steady, rhythmic, like someone knocking on wood underground. I stepped outside. Other doors along the motel row were opening, just a crack. Faces appeared briefly, then vanished. No one spoke. Everyone listened. The knocking continued from beneath the town. I followed the sound back toward the center of Briar Hollow, past the diner, past the dry fountain. The chair was gone now. In its place stood a man. Not the one from before. This one was older, much older. His skin hung loosely, like it didn't quite fit anymore. He stood perfectly still in the fountain basin, hands folded, eyes closed. Around him, people gathered. No one stepped into the streetlight's glow. The church bell rang again, once. The man in the fountain opened his eyes and began to speak. "We remember you," he said, not to me, to the town. His voice was thin, but it carried. "We remember all of you, before the roads learned to forget, before the names started slipping." A murmur moved through the crowd, heads bowed. The man turned his gaze toward me and smiled. "You," he said, "you still have yours." The knocking stopped. Silence fell so hard it made my ears ring. "Go back to your room," the woman from the motel said quietly beside me. I hadn't noticed her approach. "You won't dream tonight." "What happens if I do?" I asked. She looked at me then, really looked. "You won't wake up where you fell asleep." The crowd dispersed without another word. By the time I returned to room 7, my hands were shaking. I lay on the bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The light above flickered irregularly, not on, not off. Somewhere beneath the motel, the knocking began again, slower this time. I whispered my name aloud, just to hear it, just to make sure it still sounded right. It did, for now. But when sleep finally came, it brought it with it a dream I hadn't had before. I was standing on the road outside Briar Hollow. The sign was blank, and I was trying, desperately, to remember why that mattered.
I woke up standing. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. I wasn't in bed. I wasn't even in the room the way I remembered it. I was upright, barefoot on the cold linoleum, one hand resting against the wall as if I'd been steadying myself there for a long time. The light was on. It buzzed faintly, casting a pale, sickly glow that made the walls look closer than they should have been. My shadow clung to me, refusing to stretch away like a normal shadow would. I checked my watch. It was 6:12 a.m. I checked it again. Still 6:12. The air felt stale, unmoving, as if the night hadn't exhaled yet. I tried to remember falling asleep. There was the bed, the ceiling, the flickering light. I remembered closing my eyes because keeping them open had begun to hurt. I remembered whispering my name again, slowly, carefully, like sounding out a foreign word. After that, nothing. No dream, no darkness, just absence, as if time had skipped itself forward and left me behind. I sat down on the edge of the bed and noticed my shoes were missing. Not misplaced, gone. I searched the room, under the bed, in the bathroom, by the door. Nothing. The door was unlocked. I knew, without remembering checking, that it had been locked when I lay down. That knowledge didn't come with an image or a feeling. It was just there, like something planted. Outside, Briar Hollow was already awake. Too awake. People moved along the street with the same slow precision I'd seen the day before, but now there was a subtle urgency to them. Doors opened and closed, curtains shifted. The diner's lights were on, bright enough to hurt my eyes. I stepped out of room 7 barefoot, gravel biting into my soles, and that's when I saw it. A new name. Freshly carved on the concrete beneath my door. It wasn't scratched or weathered or crossed out. It was clean, intentional. Emmett Rowe. The letters were deep, confident. I stared at it for a long time. "That's not me," I said aloud. My voice sounded thin, unsupported. A door down the row opened. A man stepped out. Young, maybe early 30s, dark hair, unshaven, eyes rimmed red like he hadn't slept in days. He froze when he saw me. "You see it too?" he asked. His voice cracked on the last word. I nodded. "What's your name?" I asked him. He hesitated, then swallowed. "Emmett," he said. "Emmett Rowe." The world tilted slightly, not enough to knock me over, just enough to make everything feel misaligned. "That name," he said, pointing at the concrete. "It wasn't there last night. I swear it wasn't." "Neither was mine," I replied. He looked up sharply. "Your name's there too?" "No," I said. "That's the problem." We stood there in silence, staring at the letters like they might rearrange themselves if we looked away too long. "I don't remember arriving here," Emmett said quietly. "I remembered driving, then I remembered waking up in that room, and now this." He rubbed his face, hands shaking. "I tried to leave," he added. I felt my chest tighten. "What happened?" "The road just kept going," he said. "Same stretch, same trees, same sign, over and over. My gas gauge never moved, but my clock did." He met my eyes. "I drove for 6 hours." I believed him. A woman's voice cut through the air. "Breakfast is on." We turned. The motel woman stood near the diner, hands clasped in front of her like this was the most ordinary invitation in the world. Inside, the diner was too bright. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, flattening everything beneath them. The windows were painted white from the inside, sealing the place off completely. There were no menus. Plates were already on the tables. Eggs, toast, coffee. Steam rose, but I hadn't seen anyone cooking. People ate in silence. No clinking silverware, no casual chatter, just chewing and swallowing and the constant low hum of electricity. Emmett sat across from me. He didn't touch his food. "What happens to people whose names show up?" he whispered. I glanced around. No one reacted. No one needed to. "They stay," I said. I didn't know how I knew that. Emmett's eyes filled. "I don't want to stay." The man from the diner, the tall one with the patient smile, appeared beside our table. "You already are," he said gently. Emmett stood up abruptly, chair scraping loud against the floor. Several heads turned, not angry, just attentive. "I'm leaving," Emmett said, "right now." The man nodded. "Of course." Emmett looked at me. "You coming?" I wanted to say yes. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Emmett ran. I followed him outside, barefoot on hot pavement, heart pounding. He reached his car, fumbled with the keys, tore the door open. Then he froze. Inside the driver's seat, carved in the leather, was his name. Not written, carved. He screamed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was the sound of someone realizing they were too late. People gathered again. The church bell rang once. Emmett dropped to his knees, clutching his head, rocking back and forth. "I don't remember my mother's face," he whispered. "I know I had one. I know I did, but I can't see her." The motel woman knelt beside him. "That's how it starts," she said. "Names hold the rest together. Once they settle, the memories loosen." She looked at me. "You still have time, but not much." That night I didn't try to sleep. I sat on the bed, repeating my name over and over, afraid that if I stopped, even for a moment, something would fill the silence. Sometime after midnight, I realized I could no longer remember the sound of my father's laugh, and I understood, finally, what Briar Hollow took first. Not your body, not your freedom, your proof.
By the fourth morning, Briar Hollow had begun correcting me. Not violently, not angrily, patiently, like a teacher adjusting a child's grip on a pencil. I woke in the bed this time, which felt like progress, but my relief faded when I noticed the sheets were tucked tighter than before, folded with a precision that suggested I hadn't moved all night. My body ached anyway, a deep internal soreness, as if I'd been standing for hours in a place without edges. I checked the mirror. My reflection met me immediately now. Too immediately. No lag, no delay. But something else was wrong. I couldn't remember the shape of my own ears. That thought struck me with the force of a blow. I reached up, touched them, traced their curves, felt cartilage and skin and the reassuring warmth of living tissue. But in my mind, there was no stored image to compare them to. I knew I had ears. I just didn't know what they looked like unless I was touching them. That was when I started writing things down. The notebook was in my jacket pocket, though I didn't remember putting it there. The first page was blank, except for a single sentence written in my own handwriting. Do not trust what feels familiar. I didn't remember writing it, but I believed it. I added to the list my name, my age, the fact that my father used to whistle when he cooked, the color of my childhood bedroom walls. Some of those things came easily. Some took minutes of concentration, like dragging heavy objects across my mind. I hadn't finished the page when someone knocked. 3 slow raps. I knew before opening the door who it would be. The motel woman stood there, holding a ring of keys that jingled softly when she moved. You're slipping, she said, not unkindly. I nodded. Emmett? I asked. Her expression tightened. He's settled, she said. He won't wander anymore. I didn't ask what that meant. Come with me, she said, before the bell. We walked toward the church. I hadn't been inside yet. No one went there unless they were called or unless they were being shown something. The church looked wrong up close. Its wooden siding had been repainted recently, but the paint couldn't quite hide the warped boards beneath. The windows were dark, not broken or boarded, just lightless. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of ink. Not dust, ink. Pews lined the nave, all empty, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of hands. At the front, where the altar should have been, there was a wooden lectern, and behind it, a door. The motel woman unlocked it. We descended a narrow staircase into the dark. The sound of the door closing above us was final in a way I didn't like. The room beneath the church was larger than it had any right to be. Stone walls curved outward, creating a circular chamber lit by a single hanging bulb. At the center stood a table. On the table lay a book. It was enormous, leather-bound, thick enough that the spine bowed under its own weight. The cover was cracked and scarred, etched with marks that might once have been symbols, but had been worn down into something more organic. It rose and fell, just slightly, like a chest breathing. This is the ledger, the woman said. It's where Briar Hollow keeps what the world leaves behind. I stared at it, my mouth dry. What does it write? I asked. She shook her head. It doesn't write, it remembers. She opened the cover. The pages inside were yellowed and dense with names, handwritten, printed, scratched, carved, some neat, some frantic, some almost illegible. Next to many names were notes, fragments. Arrived by bus, stayed 3 nights, forgot his sister first, still dreams of water. I scanned the pages until my heart lurched. Emmett Rowe. His name was there. The notes beneath it were incomplete, trailing off mid-sentence.
"Why do you need this?" I asked. The woman closed the book gently. "Because towns like this aren't supposed to last. The roads change, the maps forget, people stop coming." "So you take them?" I said. She met my eyes. "No," she said, "we keep them." She gestured to the walls. "Names anchor memory, memory anchor place. Without them, Briar Hollow would dissolve." The bulb flickered. "And you?" I asked. Her lips pressed together. "We're the ones who stayed long enough to become part of it." The church bell rang above us. The sound traveled through the stone, vibrating in my teeth. "Your name hasn't settled yet," she said. "That's rare." "Why?" I asked. She hesitated. "Some people resist because they're running from something, others because they've already lost too much." She reached out and touched the edge of the ledger. "For a few," she said quietly, "it's because the town hasn't decided what they're worth yet." As we climbed back into the church, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. That night, I dreamed of the ledger. It was open, and my name was there, but spelled differently each time I looked at it.
The first time my name changed, I almost missed it. That's the dangerous part. How gentle the beginning is. How polite. How easy it is to explain away with fatigue or stress or the simple human habit of misremembering small things. I was standing outside the motel, notebook open in my hands, rereading the first page like it was a lifeline. My name was written at the top in careful block letters. I'd gone over it 3 times the night before, pressing hard enough that the pen had nearly torn through the paper. I knew how it looked. I knew how it felt to write. And yet, when I looked again, one letter seemed wrong. Not replaced, softened, as if the shape had been smudged while the ink was still wet. I told myself it was the light, the angle, my eyes. I traced the letters with my finger, whispering them under my breath. Halfway through, I stopped. The sound didn't match the shape anymore. It wasn't dramatic. There was no jolt of fear, no sudden revelation, just a subtle mismatch, like realizing a familiar song had an extra beat where it shouldn't. I closed the notebook. Around me, Briar Hollow moved. Not quickly, not loudly, but with intent. People watched me now without hiding it, from doorways, from across the street, from behind painted windows. Their gazes lingered longer than before, like hands resting on my shoulders. I walked to the diner. The bell above the door rang, too loud, too sharp. Inside, the same brightness, the same silence. The man with the patient smile sat at the counter, stirring a cup that never seemed to empty. "You're being noticed," he said, without turning. "I already was," I replied. He smiled wider. "Not like this." I sat 2 stools away from him. The vinyl seat stuck slightly to my skin, as if it didn't want to let go. "What happens when a name won't settle?" I asked. He stirred again. "It tries harder." "And if it still doesn't?" I pressed. He finally looked at me. Up close, I saw that the whites of his eyes weren't quite white anymore. They were threaded with faint gray lines, like cracks in old porcelain. "Then the town starts trimming," he said calmly. "Memories, details, edges.
to make it fit, I said. He nodded. Everything fits eventually. I left before he could say anything else. That afternoon, I tried to leave, not in a dramatic way, no packed bags, no running. I simply got into my car and turned the key. The engine started. That felt like a victory. I drove, past the church, past the sign, past the fields. The stretched ahead of me, familiar and wrong in equal measure. Same curve, same tree leaning slightly left, same mailbox with no numbers. I checked the odometer. It moved. I checked the clock. It didn't. After 20 minutes, I passed the church again. The bell rang once as I went by. I screamed then. I couldn't help it. The sound tore out of me raw and animal, swallowed immediately by the empty fields. I slammed the brakes and got out of the car. The air here felt thinner, stretched tight like skin over bone. The road sign stood a few yards ahead. Welcome to Briar Hollow. Beneath it, carved deep and fresh, you're close. I fell to my knees. I don't know how long I stayed there, long enough for my throat to hurt from crying, long enough for the sun to shift just slightly, not setting, not rising, just adjusting. When I returned to town, the motel woman was waiting. "You shouldn't fight it alone," she said. "I'm not going to let it take my name," I replied. She looked genuinely sad. "It already has pieces," she said. "You just haven't noticed which ones yet." She took me back to the church, not below this time, behind it. There was a small structure there I hadn't seen before, low, windowless, its door reinforced with metal bands. "What's in there?" I asked. She hesitated. "People who refuse, for a while," she said. Inside, the air was warm and smelled faintly of iron and old paper. 3 people sat on benches along the walls. They didn't look injured. They looked incomplete. One woman rocked gently, whispering a single word over and over. Another man stared at his hands, turning them as if unsure what they were for. The third looked up at me, his eyes sharpened with sudden clarity. "Don't let them shorten you," he said urgently. "That's how it starts. They take the long memories first, the ones that explain you." A bell rang. All 3 flinched. The woman screamed. The sound cut off abruptly, like something had closed around her throat. The motel woman pulled me away. "That's enough," she said. "You've seen the cost." That night, back in room 7, I opened my notebook again. My name was still there, but shorter. 1 letter gone. I knew which one it had been. I just couldn't remember how it sounded, and that terrified me more than anything else so far. By the 7th day, I could feel Briar Hollow under my skin. Not literally, not yet, but almost. The town's rhythm had begun to sync with my heartbeat. The streets, the buildings, even the dry fountain at the center, all moved in a subtle pulse I could not ignore. Every sound, every shadow, every whispering leaf in the cornfields was a reminder that I was no longer outside the pattern. I was part of it. I woke again in room 7. My body ached in ways I had not thought possible. My hands shook when I tried to write in the notebook.
Every word I scribbled almost immediately, the ink twisting on the page like it was alive. I opened the notebook to the first page. My name, my real name, was barely legible now. Letters were missing, bent, or overlapping with faint scratches from someone or something else. I couldn't remember writing some of them, but they felt familiar, as if I had written them yesterday or decades ago. I heard a knock, 3 slow, deliberate taps. The motel woman appeared in the doorway. She held no keys this time. Her hands were empty, but her eyes, they carried the weight of 1,000 names. "It's time," she said. I didn't ask what that meant. I already knew. We walked toward the church, not inside, behind it, the same metal-banded room where the refusers sat. This time, it was different. The room smelled of ink and iron, yes, but also of decay, of old wood rotting, of something once human. The ledger sat on the table, the enormous breathing book. "Touch it," she said. My instinct screamed, my brain screamed, my notebook screamed silently in my hands. "Touch it," she repeated. "You need to see." I reached out. The leather surface was warm, alive under my fingers. I felt something ripple, like a shockwave, like the town itself had acknowledged me. The pages trembled under my hand, rising and falling like lungs. I opened the ledger. My name appeared, jagged now, incomplete. Letters replaced, letters missing, letters I didn't recognize but somehow understood. Next to it were notes in handwriting that was not mine. Arrived at dusk, resisted the first night, memory fading, edges eroding. I realized then that the ledger had already begun rewriting me, not just my name, my memories, my life, my body. I tried to close the book, couldn't. My fingers gripped it as if fused to the leather. Images came, fragments of my childhood I didn't remember losing. My mother's face, faint but smiling, the smell of winter snow in my old neighborhood, the sound of my father's whistle in the kitchen. Each one flickered, blurred, then disappeared. I felt a tug at the back of my mind, something pulling, like someone or something was rearranging me. "Breathe," the motel woman said softly. I tried. My chest rose and fell, but my hands shook violently. My notebook trembled. My name trembled. The ledger whispered, not in words I could understand, not yet, but in meaning, in pulling, in taking. I felt my identity shift slightly. My memories of the road here started blending with memories of the town itself. I could not distinguish where I had been or when I had arrived. I knew only that I was here, that Briar Hollow was inside me now. The bell rang, 3 slow tolls. Someone moaned from the room behind the church, one of the refusers, a sound of desperation, of someone half erased, half alive. I glanced at my reflection in the polished surface of the table. My eyes, my real eyes, looked back at me, but the shape of my face was already different. Subtle changes, a line of the jaw softened, a curve of the ear flattened, a shadow under the eye shifted. I felt the town claiming me. I tried to write in my notebook, "I will not forget." The letters twisted. They became something else. I whispered aloud, "I am T." The ledger throbbed. My voice wavered. One letter slipped further away.
and I understood. Resistance was temporary. Survival required surrender. I left the ledger and walked back toward the motel. The streets were alive with eyes now, every window, every doorway, every shadow. I passed the fountain. The chair was gone again. By the time I returned to room 7, I was exhausted. My body, my mind, my identity stretched thin. I lay on the bed, notebook in hand, writing fragments of my past. I remember, I recall, I think, but the words didn't hold. The town had begun editing them before my eyes. I understood finally. The ledger did not just record names, it wrote reality. It rewrote people, and I was now part of that manuscript. Sleep came slowly, reluctantly, and when it did, I dreamed of letters moving across the page on their own, rearranging themselves, forming words I could not speak, sentences I could not understand, telling stories I had no memory of living. And I knew I could not leave.
By the 8th day, I could feel Briar Hollow not just around me, but inside me. It wasn't like a presence, not like a shadow that followed. It was woven into my nerves, threaded through my muscles, lacing my thoughts. I woke with a strange awareness. Every street, every building, every person in town was part of my own perception now. I could feel their gaze before I even saw them. I could hear the soft, unnatural rustle of the cornfields from miles away. I looked in the mirror. The reflection no longer belonged entirely to me. The eyes were mine, familiar, but the shape of my jaw had shifted slightly. My ears, my hands, even the curve of my mouth was subtly off, altered almost imperceptibly. Not ugly, not grotesque, just wrong. I opened my notebook. The pages resisted me now. Every word I wrote twisted in real time, letters stretching or vanishing as my eyes traced them. I wrote my name. E-M-M-T. The last letter wavered, then disappeared entirely. I felt my stomach drop. A voice whispered, not in my ears, but through my own thoughts. "We are here." I knew then the motel woman had been right. Resistance was temporary. I left the room and walked into the streets. The townspeople, once silent observers, were now moving with purpose. Doors opened as I approached, windows uncurtained. They didn't speak at first. They didn't need to. Their eyes told me what I already knew. I walked past the fountain. It was full now. Water rippled unnaturally, reflecting faces that weren't mine, but somehow I knew them. Refusers, survivors, people who had once tried to escape. They were stitched into the town the same way I was beginning to be. I reached the diner. The man with the patient smile stirred a cup that never emptied. "You've felt it, haven't you?" he asked, not really asking, just confirming. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded strange to me, almost echoing like it carried across the town itself. "You are part of it now," he said. "Even as you resist, even as you write, you're already here."
I wanted to run. My body knew it, but the road outside twisted under my feet. Every path led me back to the fountain, to the streets, to the center of Briar Hollow. I went back to the church. The bell rang once, twice, 3 times. Inside, the ledger waited. This time, it called to me. I reached out, touching the leather. Warm, living, breathing. The pages fluttered like wings. My name was written there now, but not just letters, shapes of memories, fragments of life, all woven into ink. Childhood winters, my father's whistle, the smell of the old driveway. All of it was fading, rearranging, reshaping. I realized with sudden clarity that the ledger wasn't passive. It wasn't just recording, it rewrote. I tried to close it, couldn't. I tried to speak. My own voice betrayed me. Words came out altered, twisted. I am no longer just me. The motel woman appeared at my side. "Let it," she said, "or it will let itself. You cannot resist entirely anymore." I understood. The town spoke through me now. The line between observer and observed had dissolved. I walked outside. My own reflection in the diner window looked back at me, no longer fully human. Parts of me were the town, the shape of the street, the fountain, even the cornstalks. They lived in me now. The church bell rang again. I tried to remember my name. It fractured, pieces gone, letters missing, memories lost. And I realized the town doesn't just take names, it borrows life itself. The ledger, the fountain, the streets, they were a kind of organism, and I was becoming a part of it. By nightfall, I understood that escape was no longer a question of movement, it was a question of identity. Sleep came anyway, and when it did, the town whispered my memories back to me, rearranged, rewritten, reshaped. I was waking up as someone else, and Briar Hollow was speaking through me. I woke to find my hands weren't entirely mine. Not that they looked wrong at first, but when I moved them, tracing the veins and lines with my eyes, I noticed the subtle differences. My skin had a faint, grainy texture, like the rough concrete outside the motel or the cracked surface of the fountain basin. The edges of my nails were uneven, splitting slightly, and a fine dust, almost imperceptible, fell from my fingertips. I tried to shake it off. My body felt foreign. The town had started with my memories. Now it was beginning with me. I left room 7, barefoot as usual. The pavement welcomed me differently now. Each step connected me physically to the roads and the streets. I could feel every crack, every stone, every shift of gravel beneath my soles. It was no longer a surface I walked on. It was part of me. People in town didn't just watch me anymore. They guided me. Subtle movements, nods of their heads, a turn of a shoulder, a gesture of the hand. The town itself was orchestrating me, synchronizing my steps with its rhythm. I passed the diner. The man with the patient smile was there, stirring his endless cup. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I knew what he wanted, the ledger.
I walked to the church, and this time the doors opened without anyone touching them. The ledger waited, breathing, alive. I approached it, hesitant. Every step sent a vibration up my legs, a faint humming in my chest, as if my own body were acknowledging the town's claim. The pages opened. My name appeared. E-M-T. But it wasn't stable. It shimmered, blurred, each letter elongating or shrinking, reshaping itself into something unrecognizable. My memories followed the letters. First, the small things, the sound of rain on my old roof, the smell of my childhood books. Then larger fragments, my mother's face, my father's laughter, even the memory of leaving home years ago. All blurred, scrambled, rewritten. I tried to close the ledger. My hands refused. I felt the town beneath me, under my skin, a pull, a tug, a whisper. We are here. We are you. We are everything you forget. I staggered back. My reflection in the polished pages was not just me. It was me and the town fused. My shoulders broadened slightly, as if carrying the weight of streets. My fingers were elongated, fine lines crawling across the skin like maps. My eyes, I don't know whose they were anymore. The church bell rang, 4 tolls. Somewhere deep beneath the building, a knocking began. Not random, not irregular, deliberate, communicating, counting, claiming. I stumbled outside. The fountain was dry again. The chair returned, now facing the street. I knew what would happen if I sat. The motel woman appeared beside me. "Your body follows your name," she said quietly. "If the letters disappear, so will you." I couldn't speak. My mouth moved, but the words came out fragmented. I am not nothing. She nodded, not in reassurance, but understanding. The town had begun the final phase. Memory, body, identity, every layer I had relied on was dissolving. I was becoming a part of the streets, the signs, the fountain, the cornstalks. I ran, or I tried to. My feet obeyed, but every step led me back. The streets bent like water, reshaping themselves to keep me inside the pattern. By nightfall, I understood fully. Briar Hollow did not just take people, it recreated them. First the name, then the memory, then the body. By morning, I would be something new, something else. I opened the notebook one last time. I tried to write, I am E-M-T. The letters twisted. The page shivered under my fingers. Words I didn't write crawled across it. Already part, already claimed, already rewritten. I closed it. The town hummed beneath me. Above me, the bell tolled, and I realized the terrifying truth. Escape wasn't a question of leaving. It was a question of remembering who I was before Briar Hollow decided who I would become. Sleep came, and I did not fight it, because I knew the ledger, the town, the streets, they were waiting, and so was my name.
By the 10th day, I barely recognized my own reflection. I did not fully look into mirrors anymore. I had stopped counting the letters in my name. Each time I tried, the shapes shifted before my eyes. I could still feel the edges of who I had been,
memories clinging like fragile leaves to a branch, but every thought I had of myself was tempered by the town. I woke in room 7. My bed no longer felt like my bed. The sheets clung to my body unnaturally, like they remembered more about me than I did. My body ached in unfamiliar places, joints, muscles, bones that had never hurt before. I opened the notebook. It was useless. The pages writhed. Words I hadn't written crawled across the paper. My name, my past, my life, they all twisted into lines I could not decipher. I left the room. The streets were alive now in a way I could feel, not with eyes, not with ears, but through every fiber of my being. Briar Hollow's rhythm was inside me, pulsing, directing. I passed the fountain. The chair was gone, replaced by a pool of water reflecting the sky, but the reflection was wrong. It was me, yes, but also the town. My body had begun to mimic the streets, the buildings, the patterns of the town itself. My arms lengthened slightly, my back arched as if mimicking the curve of the roads. My shadow stretched unnaturally, lined with alleys and doorways that did not exist. The motel woman appeared beside me. Her hand rested on my shoulder. "You are ready," she said softly. I did not understand. Ready for what? To join, she said, to become part of the ledger, part of the streets, part of Briar Hollow itself. You cannot leave anymore. I wanted to argue. My mouth moved, but the words were gone. I ran, or I tried, but the streets bent beneath me. Cornfields stretched endlessly, signs twisted, every turn brought me back. I felt the town moving under my feet, alive, reshaping to keep me inside its pattern. I reached the church. The doors opened before I touched them. Inside, the ledger waited. Its spine rose and fell, breathing. Pages fluttered with letters I could not read, letters that seemed to hum in tune with my heartbeat. I reached out. The leather was warm, alive, and the moment I touched it, I understood fully. Briar Hollow was not a town in the ordinary sense. It was a memory collector. A place that existed to anchor people who had no place to remain in the world or who refused to stay gone. Roads forgot them, maps omitted them, time erased them, but here their names could anchor reality. The ledger did not merely record, it rewrote, it shaped life. First, it took the name, then the memory, then the body, then the person became indistinguishable from the town itself. I opened the ledger. My name was there, fragmented, letters rearranged, lines of ink formed shapes that pulsed like veins, like streets, like paths through Briar Hollow. I felt my memories start to dissolve. My childhood, my parents, my home, the sound of rain, the smell of snow, each fragment I had clung to, twisted, reshaping into the town's memory. I tried to resist. I tried to speak. My voice fractured. I am not lost, not
Nothing. The ledger responded. The letters pulsed faster, brighter. I could feel myself being rewritten, reshaped, absorbed. Outside, the bell tolled 6 times, 7, 8, each strike like a heartbeat, each strike like a claim. I felt my body elongate, expand, merge, my skin mapped with streets, my muscles echoed the curve of roads, my nerves aligned with the pulse of the town. My reflection in the fountain shimmered, not me, not fully, but not entirely separate either. The motel woman knelt beside me. "You are part of Briar Hollow now," she whispered. "The ledger, the streets, the fountain, they all carry your name. You exist, but not as you once were. You are both witness and memory. You are here forever." I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I could not, because my voice was no longer fully mine. It was the town's. I looked down at the fountain. My reflection, myself, was fading. Letters, streets, shadows, water, ink, they swirled together. I could feel my memories dissolving. The ledger called me. The town called me. My name had been rewritten. I whispered the fragments I had left. E-M-M-T. The water rippled. The letters shimmered. And then I felt whole in a way I had never been before. Not my whole, something else's. Briar Hollow had claimed me. And in that claiming, I understood the truth of the road. It never forgets, and it never learns.
By the 11th day, I could barely recall myself. Not because I had forgotten entirely, not yet, but because the town had begun choosing which pieces of me would remain and which would be rewritten. My memories were like torn pages in the ledger, half-formed, curling at the edges, ink smudged. I woke in room 7. The sheets were perfectly smooth. My notebook sat on the desk, open, but the pages were blank. Blank except for letters that had moved. My name, my identity, was written and erased over and over, the ink curling like smoke. I tried to touch it. My fingers passed through the letters as if they were water. I stepped outside. The streets pulsed. The buildings leaned in. The pavement beneath my feet seemed to hum, resonating with the rhythm of my heartbeat. Or maybe my heartbeat had become the town's rhythm. I couldn't tell anymore. The fountain stood at the center. Its surface reflected not just my face, but pieces of every person who had ever resisted Briar Hollow. Their shadows shimmered in the water, waiting, watching, claiming. I approached. The water rippled, and I saw myself, not entirely me, not entirely town, something in between. My reflection moved independently, gesturing, beckoning, whispering things I could no longer hear, but somehow understood. The motel woman appeared beside me, silent this time. She did not need words. Her gaze told me the last letter had to be given, the final part of me. I knelt beside the fountain. My hands hovered over the water. My notebook rested beside me, pages blank, waiting. The church bell rang. 9 tolls, 10, 11. Somewhere deep below, the ledger shifted. Pages rustled like wings. Letters shimmered in rhythm with my pulse. I could feel it reaching for me. I whispered my name, fragmented, broken. E, M, M. The last letter refused me. I reached for it, tried to pull it back. It was gone, already absorbed, already rewritten. A sharp pain traveled through my head, through my chest, through my arms. Not physical, not yet. Mental, existential. A sensation of being unmade, then remade, folded into the town's design. I felt my memories of roads, houses, forests, and people dissolve. My past life, the life I had carried so stubbornly, was now shared by the streets, the trees, the fountain, the church, the ledger. I understood fully then. Briar Hollow is not a town in the ordinary sense. It does not merely take names, it collects existence. It anchors the lost, it preserves what the world forgets, and if you resist too long, it rewrites you into its rhythm, into its memory, into its being. I tried to scream, my lips moved, my mouth opened. The sound that came out was not mine, not fully. It echoed the town, the fountain, the streets, the ledger. And in that sound I understood that I was both speaking and being spoken. The motel woman reached out, her hand rested on my shoulder. "You are part of it now," she said. "The ledger will remember you, the streets will carry you, the fountain will reflect you, and the next one will arrive." I looked at my reflection in the water. The letters shimmered faintly. E, M, M, T. Not fully mine, not fully lost, something in between, something suspended. I knelt there, breathing the town, feeling it through every nerve, every vein, every thought. My memories, my body, my name, they were all fragments now, shared with every corner of the streets, the alleys, the fountain, the church, the fields beyond. And then I understood the road. The road that never learned my name. It never needed to. It led everyone here eventually. And now I was here. The town hummed, the ledger breathed, the fountain rippled, the streets pulsed, and I, or what I had been, whispered my final letter into the rhythm of Briar Hollow. The last letter had been claimed. I was no longer fully me. I was the town, and the town waited for the next one.
I no longer woke in room 7. I woke on the street. Or perhaps the street woke in me. The boundaries were gone. The motel, the church, the fountain, they existed, yes, but also, somehow, I existed in them. My body no longer felt separate from the pavement. My hands traced the texture of streets as if my veins and arteries were roads themselves. My fingers became paths. My arms became lanes. My heartbeat aligned with the hum of Briar Hollow. I tried to remember myself. The name I had clung to for 11 days had dissolved entirely. Letters vanished, twisted, remade. E, M, M, T had been a collection of fragments now absorbed into something larger. I walked, or the streets carried me, toward the church. The bell tolled 8 times. 9, 10. Each strike was a heartbeat, a claim. The ledger waited. Its pages pulsed. Each letter shimmered, alive. I touched it, and this time there was no hesitation. My hand passed through leather, through ink, through air, as if I had always been part of it. I understood fully. I was both writer and written, observer and observed. My memories, my life, my existence, they were now threads in the ledger's vast tapestry. I saw faces in the pages, not fully human, not fully town, people who had resisted, who had been rewritten, merged, claimed. The process was inevitable. The town was patient, persistent, and eternal. Outside, the streets moved subtly beneath me, guiding me, reshaping themselves. Cornfields leaned inward. Shadows stretched unnaturally, not in the light, but in the absence of it. The roads curved back upon themselves, ensuring I could not leave, not because I tried, not because I failed, but because the town decided I was here. I felt the motel woman beside me. Her form was familiar. Her hand rested on what had once been my shoulder, but she was also the street. She was the bell. She was the ledger. "You are all of it now," she whispered. I understood. The fountain rippled. My reflection, once separate from the water, was now inseparable from it. Faces of the past, fragments of the ledger, echoes of myself, they swirled together, forming a single continuous reflection. I leaned over the water. The ripples embraced me. The town whispered, not in words, not in voices, but in meaning, in memory, in identity. We exist. You exist. We are the road, the street, the fountain, the ledger. We are all who remain forgotten. We are all who refuse to leave. I tried to speak. My mouth moved. Sound emerged, but it was the town speaking through me, my voice layered with countless others, voices overlapping, echoing. I walked again, or perhaps I did not walk. Perhaps the town moved me. The streets pulsed beneath me, guiding. Windows opened, doors shifted, the buildings leaned in, cornfields rustled, shadows reached. Every step claimed me further, every breath fused me deeper. The bell tolled again, and I understood Briar Hollow fully. It was not a town in the ordinary sense. It was a living memory, a vessel for those whom the world forgets. Roads, streets, fields, fountains, buildings, they existed to hold people who would otherwise vanish. The ledger recorded, the streets embodied, the town consumed, and those who resisted became part of its structure, its rhythm, its being. I realized my final truth. I was no longer a visitor. I was no longer Emmett. I was part of the town. The fountain rippled, the streets pulsed, the ledger breathed, and the road waited for the next one. I whispered a name that was no longer mine, and the town claimed it.
By the 13th day, I no longer knew if I had woken, or if the streets had woken me.
Every step I took felt predetermined. Pavement beneath my feet pulsed, breathing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Or perhaps it was my heartbeat that pulsed in rhythm with the town. Windows leaned in, doors slid open silently. Cornfields whispered, the stalks bending toward me, brushing against my arms, leaving impressions like fingerprints. I stopped, tried to breathe. It wasn't my breath anymore, not entirely. The air itself seemed to pulse with memory. The town spoke through the wind, through the streets, through the fountain. My lungs drew it in, my body carried it out. I glanced at the fountain, my reflection shimmered, half human, half street, layered with the memories of those who had come before me. Faces flickered in the ripples, names, fragments, echoes stitched into the water like veins of ink. I remembered something, or thought I did, something called Emmett, or maybe that was the person I had been before. The motel woman appeared beside me, her form blurred with the road itself. Bell tower lines etched faintly into her skin. Her eyes reflected the ledger. "You see it now," she said. Her voice was both hers and the town's. "We are a memory machine. Roads, streets, fountains, buildings, they are veins, arteries, nerves. Names anchor them. Refusal becomes structure. Resistance becomes form, and the ledger records it all." I wanted to speak. I opened my mouth. The sound that came out was layered, not just mine. Every syllable carried fragments of every person who had been absorbed here. I walked, or perhaps I was being carried. The streets pulsed beneath me. Shadows stretched. Buildings shifted imperceptibly. The town itself was alive now in a way I could feel through every nerve ending, every fiber of my being. I reached the church. The bell tolled 12 times. Each strike resonated through my chest, through my bones, through the veins of the streets. The ledger awaited, breathing, alive. It did not record my name anymore. It contained it, every fragment, every letter, every memory folded into its pages. I reached out. The leather was warm. My fingers sank into the inked pages, tracing letters I no longer remembered writing. Images rose, memories of roads, windows, fountains, cornfields, faces, mine and not mine, all intertwined in a name I no longer recognized. I realized then that the town was a living organism built from the remnants of names, memories, and existence. Every person it claimed became part of the structure. The streets themselves were stitched from fragments of life. The buildings held pieces of thought. The fountain reflected both self and town simultaneously. I felt my body shift, my legs elongated, muscles aligning with the curves of roads. My arms stretched into the shape of lanes and alleys. My veins mapped the streets. My heartbeat became the hum of the town. I tried to resist, tried to recall a memory that was fully mine. I could not. They had been absorbed, rewritten, repurposed. I understood fully. Briar Hollow did not merely take names, it integrated life itself. Identity was optional, memory was optional, resistance was temporary. Those who came here became both anchor and conduit, holding the town in existence while the town reshaped them into what it needed.
I glanced at the fountain one last time. My reflection shimmered. Letters appeared and dissolved in the ripples. Fragments of E, M, M, T, layered with hundreds of others, interwoven into a single identity, shared with the streets, the fountain, the buildings, the ledger. I knelt, placed my hands in the water. The ripples spread across the square. Shadows stretched, moving with my fingers. I felt the town speak through me. The road had claimed me. The town had rewritten me. And I understood my final role, both observer and structure, memory and vessel. The streets pulsed beneath my feet. The fountain shimmered. The ledger breathed. And somewhere far away, the road waited for the next arrival. I whispered a name I no longer owned, and the town claimed it.
By the 14th day, I could no longer feel the boundary between myself and Briar Hollow. Not metaphorically, not partially, but physically, mentally, spiritually. My heartbeat was the town's heartbeat. My breath was the wind through the cornfields. My thoughts were the hum of streets, the creak of doors, the ripple of the fountain. I walked, or the town carried me, through the streets. Windows opened, doors slid aside, shadows leaned in, cornstalks brushed my arms. The town hummed, pulsing beneath my feet. Every step I took was both mine and not mine. Every movement was guided, yet autonomous. I passed the fountain. Water shimmered with the reflections of everyone who had ever been claimed here. Their faces flickered in the ripples, letters floating across the surface like insects trapped in amber. I knelt beside it. The reflection shimmered. My own face was only partially recognizable. Roads mapped over my veins, buildings etched faintly into my skin, shadows of other names layered across my eyes, my mouth, my hands. I remembered, or thought I did, a life before, a name, Emmett. But it was gone, swallowed, integrated. I could recall the shape of the letters, the feeling of the pen in my hand, but the sound, the life, the ownership, they had vanished. The motel woman appeared beside me. Her form was both her own and the town itself. Bell tower lines traced across her arms. Streets appeared faintly in her skin. Her eyes reflected the ledger, which pulsed behind her, breathing like a living thing. "You are part of it now," she said, her voice layered with all the voices of those who had been claimed before me. "You exist, but not as you were. You exist as the town exists, and the road waits for the next one." I tried to speak. My lips moved, sound emerged, but it was layered, overlapping, not just mine. It was the town speaking through me. Letters, streets, fountains, buildings, all speaking. I touched the ledger. Pages shimmered, letters twisting, memories intertwining. My life, my past, my identity, all merged with the names of those who had come before me. I saw them now, every arrival, every refusal, every resistance, all woven into the town's structure, held in the streets, etched into the buildings, mirrored in the fountain, recorded in the ledger. The town remembered everything. I felt my body begin to shift.
arms lengthened, veins mapping roads, legs curved following the bend of streets. Skin took on the texture of pavement, my reflection fractured, showing fragments of every claimed person layered into my features. The bell tolled, 14 strikes, 15, each strike a heartbeat, a claim, a mark. I tried to hold on to what I was, to the letters of my name, to memory, to the feeling of self. I could not. The ledger pulsed beneath my hand, my reflection shimmered, my memories, my identity, my body, they were being rewritten into the town. Every street, every fountain, every building now carried a piece of me. I was not gone, I was everywhere. I knelt beside the fountain, my hands rested on the water. My reflection dissolved into ripples, letters shimmered, names intertwined, shadows stretched, reaching across the square. The town whispered through me. We exist, we remember, we claim, we wait. And I understood the final truth. Briar Hollow does not merely take names, it integrates existence itself, anchoring people who would otherwise vanish. Resistance is temporary, memory is optional, identity is reconstructed into the town's being. I rose. My steps were both mine and the town's. The streets pulsed beneath me. Windows leaned. Shadows stretched. Cornfields rustled. I whispered a name I no longer owned. The town claimed it, and the road waited forever.
By the 15th day, I no longer had a sense of where I ended and Briar Hollow began. I woke, or the town woke in me on the streets. Pavement beneath my feet pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Or maybe my heartbeat had become the pulse of the streets. The cornfields rustled in patterns that mirrored the rhythm of my breath. The buildings leaned toward me. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Windows opened and closed in silent acknowledgement. I moved forward, not because I chose to, but because the town carried me. Every step aligned me with the streets. Every breath aligned me with the wind through the fountain. Every heartbeat aligned me with the bell in the church. The fountain shimmered. Reflections rippled across the water. Faces, mine, theirs, everyone who had been claimed, twisted together, layered with letters, shadows, memories. I reached my hands into the water. Ripples spread outward, across the square, through the streets. Letters appeared and vanished. Shadows shimmered. The reflection stared back at me, half human, half street, layered with memories of all who had come before. I whispered a name I no longer fully owned, and the town listened, and the road waited forever.